Let me ask you a question. What is your biggest challenge for bringing a business? Is it getting in front of people, getting in front of the right type of people, or getting people to buy from you? Today, we're going to be talking about how to bring in business for introverts, extroverts, and everybody in between. I want to welcome you to another episode of the Jim Roman Show, where we talk about how to build a better business to build a better life. I'm your host, Jim Roman, and we want to welcome you. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. Thank you for being here today. How typically these episodes go is we talk on a particular topic for 20 minutes, and at the end, I answer any questions and answers. Today's a big topic because I know there are introverts and extroverts and ambiverts in between, and bringing a business is important to you in any time of the year and in any economy. So this may be multiple episodes that we do this. So again, I want to thank you for joining us. If you like what you see, please feel free to like, share, and comment below, because we love to answer your questions or comments. So if you will, at this time, let's get started. So if you would put in the comments right now, what is your biggest challenge for bringing in business? So if you would write that in the comments, what is your biggest challenge for bringing a business? Is it getting in front of people, getting in front of the right type of people, figuring out what's the best way to bring in business based on your personality? So in the comments below, please post what your biggest challenge is. As you're doing that, we're welcoming more people to our event. So thank you for joining us. Again, if you would comment below, that'd be awesome. Great. Trish, good to see you. Heather, good to see you again. Bob, well, I haven't seen you in a while. Thank you for joining us. So we're going to talk about 3 things to consider when it comes to bringing in business. Three, and there'll be more than that, but this is a very important topic to you. But there are 3 things that I would consider if you wanted to bring in business as an introvert and or extrovert, or myself as an ambivert, which is a cross between the 2 people. Before I go into those 3 things, what I want to talk about is I want to be talking about how I got here today. A lot of people don't know my full story. You maybe read my bio. My dad passed away of a heart attack at the age of 62, and when he died, our restaurant died that my parents owned. But what you don't know, in that same year, in 1996, when he passed away, I almost gave up on business. I almost gave up on selling. I almost gave up on everything. And I think this is important because if you're like me, I hate to sell. I hate rejection. But I do love when people buy from me. So how can I get more people to buy from me and have less rejection, never cold call, and things like that? Well, it begins my journey in selling was in 1996. I just came out of being broke, bankrupt, and for a short period of time, I was homeless. I was just getting back on my feet. I had a mentor who was guiding me and directing me along the way. And in 1996, I was selling advertising in Williamsburg, Virginia. I went into this store. It was a winery cheese sandwich shop. Went in to talk about my products and services to this person. And I walked out with no sale. In fact, I was so bummed out that I went down the corridor and I sat on the bench and I looked up into the sky and I said, you know what? I quit. I give up. I can't do it anymore. I'm done. I'm done. And I really, sorry, but it comes back. It's really hard. And I heard this voice that said, go ask him why he said no. And I looked around and there was nobody around. And I was like, okay, that was weird. And so I started thinking about going home and just giving up altogether, throwing in the towel, every sense of the words. And the voice said in my head, go ask him why he said no. And it was like loud, like if someone was standing there. And again, I looked around and I said, okay, fine. And so I started walking back to this wine shop, this sandwich shop, and I'm thinking, why do you ask someone no? And I don't know, but this voice, this calling told me to do it. So I walked back into the store. I said to the gentleman, can I ask you why you said no? And he said, I didn't say no. In fact, come next week, I'll give you a check. You have such a great price that I'll get other advertisers for you. He just happened to be in the middle of lunch and he couldn't write the contract right then and there. So I walked out that store, went down the corridor, and I sat back on that bench and I looked in the sky and I said, what just happened? I almost threw in everything for the thought that this person said no to me and he didn't say no to me. And I was like, wow, I don't think I ever want to get to that position ever again. And I made a commitment to God because I felt it was a higher power speaking to me that day because there was nobody around telling me to go ask why he said no, that I'm going to be the best salesperson that I can be so that I've never put myself in a position of not having money, not having a job. And so that day, I decided to figure out how to crack the code of bringing in more business. And I want to share some of the best practices in this episode and future episodes, because I think this is going to be a multiple part episodes series, if you will, on this very topic. Because I don't know if you're an introvert, an extrovert, or like myself, an ambivert, which is a cross between the two. I don't know if you like to cold call, hate to cold call. And so depending on your personality, your profession, and your position, you might have a different attract or a different tact or track to bringing in business. And so I just want to share some of the best practices I've learned over the years to get people to not only to buy it from me, refer to me, and everything in between. So one of the first things that I would consider if I want to bring in more business is that understanding the parts and pieces to bring in a business. There are three. There's marketing, networking, and selling. Again, I'll say that again. To bring in business on a regular, consistent basis, there are three things. There's marketing, what I like to say, getting known in the marketplace. There's networking, becoming liked in the marketplace. And then there's selling, getting people to trust you in the marketplace. You probably heard the saying, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. Well, guess what? Those principles apply to bringing in business. And it's usually through marketing, networking, and selling. And understanding that makes a huge difference in increasing your closing ratio, getting in front of more of the right type of people, and ultimately getting those people to buy from you. Let me give you another way of looking at it. So often when I deal with sales teams and salespeople, I can hear people say, hey, Jim, I am great at closing people, but I'm not good at getting and finding those people. And there are people who are good at saying, I can find them, but I can't close them. And I find that there are people who are good at finding business, but not good at closing that business, and vice versa, good at closing it and not finding it. And that's where marketing, networking, and selling comes in. And there are components involved in marketing, networking, and selling. And if I had time, I could go in just one topic, just marketing alone, on knowing how you need to know your unique value proposition. You need to know your target market. You need to know your number of appointments, and you need to figure out the strategies for bringing a business that fit your personality, your profession, and your position. If I had time, I would be talking about the selling elements. In selling, you need to know how to get in front of people, get the appointment, close the appointment, and buy from them, get them to buy from you. And then networking is about what you do before you network, what you do during your networking efforts, and then what you do after. In fact, if you'd like me to do an extra episode on marketing, networking, and selling, please comment below. Comment below. Whether you're watching this live right now or you watch this after we record it, I always look back at the comments so I can give you the most value. So if you learned something today that you want me to cover again and again, please comment below, send me an email, message me, or email me at questions@askjimroman.com. But again, maybe you have a marketing issue. Maybe you can't find them. You don't know how to find them. In the third part of today, I'm going to talk about some of the things you can do based on your industry to find people. Maybe you're not good at, presenting to those people. In future episode, I want to share the selling the 7 C's, getting people to buy from you. This is a 7-step process that I created to get people to buy from me more often than not. And it was inspired by that day in 1996 when I was going to give it all up. I figured out, again, not how to sell people, but how to serve them so they end up buying from me. So if it were me and I were you and I wanted to bring in more business on a regular, consistent basis, I'd be looking at my marketing efforts, my networking efforts, and my sales approach. So that's one thing that I would be doing if it were me and I were you to bring in business on a regular, consistent basis. That would make the biggest difference. Number 2, the second thing that I would consider in efforts to bring in business is figuring out your target market. This is an important thing. You heard me start off with this episode asking you, is your biggest challenge getting in front of people, getting in front of the right type of people, or getting people to buy from you? Because a lot of times people aren't buying from you. You're not in front of the right type of people. I always ask audiences when I speak around the country, how many people here would like to have people who want to learn more about your product or service? Raise their hands. People raise their hands. And how many people would like people to be able to share their product and services? Raise their hands. How many people like you to buy from you? Because sometimes people are just shopping. They're not in your target market. They're not even in your sweet spot. And sometimes you don't have a sales issue. You just have a target market issue. Let me give you an example. In my business as a business coach, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I have found over the years of doubling people's businesses, growing people's businesses, and running their businesses, there are 3 size businesses. We call them typically in the 9 stages. You've probably heard me talk about the 9 stages of business, but I found a step further that there are companies that are $250,000 in revenue or below, usually 2 or less employees. There are companies that are $500,000 in revenue, and then $750,000 or more in revenue. Why is this important? Because a lot of times people don't realize that the revenue that a company is producing determines a lot of times if they have the money to buy your product and service. In my business, $250,000, typically they don't have enough money if they're doing $250,000 or less, 2 employees or less, to stay with me for a long period of time. And so we created a program just for them to grow their revenues. You know, we call it revenue through relationships, getting them to go from $100,000 to $200,000. They have more money. From $250,000 to $300,000, now they have more money to move on to the next phase of our business. I find that companies are doing $500,000 in revenue, around 7 employees, typically don't have time and money. And so they don't usually take the time to invest in coaching or in consulting. And so often they get stuck at that $500,000 mark. But I need to know that if I'm sitting down with somebody at $250,000, they're going to need sales. If someone's at $500,000, they're going to need a people performance issue or solution. And then there's a $750,000 to $1 million or more target market that we found in our business. That happens is that they have the time and they have the money, but they're also sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'll give you another example in regards to real estate. If you're a realtor, a residential realtor, I find it's, that you can have different size target markets. For example, there are realtors that typically deal with $250,000 and below houses. And then there are people who deal with $350,000 to $500,000 houses, and then there's $1 million or more. Now, if you're new to the business, you don't know this, but I'm told by the best of the best in the industry across the country that selling $1 million house is easier than somebody who does a $250,000 and below house. I'll say that again. Someone who's buying a $500,000 or $500,000 to $1 million house typically knows what they want. Where a $250,000 or below, a lot of times they don't know. They're shopping and they need to see a lot of houses. Nothing wrong with that, but I think it's important if you're a real estate agent and you're new to the business, you need to know what kind of size houses you want to sell. Because a lot of times realtors, when they first get into the business, will ask for anybody, and then they'll blow the $1 million deal, or they'll get too many $200,000, $100,000 houses and never be able to make it in the business. And I think that's important. I think the last example that I like to use is property managers' target market. So property managers, people who sell do residential single family homes and rent those out on behalf of investors and owners, you might be asking yourself, how are you going to bring in business based on your target market? I find that a lot of property managers get business through real estate relationships, building relationship with realtors, where others get it through we call accidental owners. So they become people who inherited a house, someone died in their family, and now they're responsible for that house, or someone can't sell their house and they need to rent that house out. And so depending on what kind of property manager personality you have, you might build it with realtors, you might do it through advertising, you might do it through networking. And so knowing your target market is important. You might target people who have 8 or more doors, 8 properties they're already managing themselves. What I've experienced in that industry as a target market, that if you are managing your own properties, by the time you get to 8 doors or more, 8 residential properties you're overseeing, it becomes a full-time job. And a lot of times you already have a job. And so if I were a property manager and I was looking for a portfolio, I would target investor groups, get networked in investor groups, talking to accountants and financial planners, trying to find those people who invest in real estate and have 7 properties, 8 properties, because now it's becoming a full-time job. So you can see based on your target market would determine how you market, how you network, and in some cases, how you sell to those people. So again, for me in my business as a business coach and consultant, I find that companies that are $250,000 or less need more revenue. Those who do $500,000 need more people, and those $1 million or more need more processes. In real estate, figuring out who you want to work with, buyers or listers. Listers or sellers in that aspect of it. So again, I could be doing something this only on target market. And so I really want you to comment below who your target market is. Who are you looking to be introduced to? Because I would love to follow up with you, and maybe we could schedule a coaching call and talk about how to get you in front of those type of people. If you're looking for, say, people who are selling $500,000 homes or more, or you want to sell $500,000 or more, let's talk about that. If you're a contractor looking to get more remodeling jobs, let's talk about that. Because your target market, I think, makes the biggest difference in getting in front of people, getting in front of the right type of people, and getting them to buy from you. So hopefully you can see up to this point that understanding marketing and networking and selling are key components to bringing in business. And that understanding your target market, not going after everybody and anybody, because you end up usually getting nobody and no business for yourself in the long run, and you burn out a lot of those times. Finally, I want to talk about the third thing that I would consider if I wanted to bring in more business. Before I do that, though, I'd like to take a moment now to look at the comments, just because, again, I want to be able to add the most value to you. Your biggest challenges, finding people, okay? Good, getting in front of the right type of people, that's good, good. Good, continue to comment. Again, if you're watching this recording after we go live, please constantly comment. We want to be able to follow up with additional content. So the third and final piece to bring in a business in this first parts of the series is strategies. What strategies and tactics are you using to bring in business? What are you doing to bring in business? See, for me, I'm an ambivert. What an ambivert is a cross between an introvert and an extrovert. In other words, I can be speaking in front of you now, in front of groups of people, and do really well. But there's a time that I need time to myself. So a lot of times I'll isolate myself for a period of time because I need to recuperate my energy like an introvert. But then if I'm by myself too long, then I get stir crazy, and then I need to get in front of people. And so I'm able to be in front of a group of people, but I also need time by myself. And I think it's important to know what type of personality you are, whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, an ambivert, because I think the type of strategy or tactic you implement will make the biggest difference. What do I mean by this? Years ago, I was running a class, our 90-day double your income program. It was a program we created, a bunch of us created 15 years ago, to see if we could double people's sales, revenue, number of clients, number of appointments in just 90 days. And in our experience, within 3 to 6 months, we doubled people's businesses 65% of the time. And I was interested in how did we go and do that other than holding people accountable, giving them the principles of prospecting, etc. And I found that the people who doubled their income, their revenue, or their number of appointments that had multiple strategies other than hoping, praying, and begging it came in. In other words, a lot of us are hoping that the business comes in this week or hoping that we get enough business by the end of the month. And that's not good enough strategy. You need, in my opinion, in my experience, you need 8 to 10 strategies to pull from to bring in business year-round in any economy, in any situation. And in those 8 to 10 strategies, focusing on 3, probably no more than 4, that you like doing, you feel comfortable in doing. What do I mean by that? I remember working with a realtor years ago, and he had 2 strategies, literally 2 strategies. The first one was hoping, praying, and begging the business comes in, right? He was a believer, and he hoped that he would be blessed. And the other one was open houses, okay? Oh, and I think he did cold calling, but he didn't do much of that. And in talking to him, come to find out, he hated open houses. So if you hate something, how likely are you going to do it? Little to none. And that is exactly what's happening. He was doing little to none, and his business was starting to collapse. Now, we uncovered this, and we said to him, David, you need to come up with different ways of bringing a business that you actually like doing, whether that's working your current network, working with past customers, whatever that is. But if we don't find something other than open houses, I'm afraid that you're going to lose hope, you're going to lose steam, and you're going to lose your business. Find out years later, he did figure it out. He was still in business, and I was so happy to see that. See, I think that we need to find those strategies that work for you. For example, I don't like to cold call. I don't hope to never, ever cold call again. There's nothing wrong with cold calling. I just don't want to do it. If you love doing it, awesome. But I like to do what I call relationship-based marketing, building relationships with people that I already know. I usually find business from my current customers and my past customers and my strategic alliances and strategic partners. And so I think if you could take the time to pause this video or take some time to yourself and write down all the strategies that you're doing to bring in business, and all of them, for cold calling, advertising, marketing, networking, and if you're in networking, what networks you belong to, strategic partners, advertising, and make that list and ask yourself, how's it working out for you? Because I find a lot of times people are doing a lot of marketing, networking, and selling techniques and tools, but they're not tracking what's working and what's not working. I remember working with an insurance company years ago. Angela is her name. And I was talking to Angela, call her Angie, Angela. And I said, Angela, how are you currently bringing a business? Well, she's in a networking group. She's advertising in the yellow book, or the yellow pages back then, and the community book, the red book. And in looking at that, she was getting her business from the red book and from her networking, getting 0 from the yellow book. And so I said to her, it looks like you shouldn't be doing the yellow book anymore. You should invest in the other ones since you're getting business out of the red book, the community book, and your networking. She says, no, I can't do that. I go, why? And she says, well, because I might lose out on business. I said, you haven't gotten any business, and so why not reinvest that money? Well, she wasn't ready to do that. But the moral of the story is we found by analyzing her strategies and tactics for bringing in business that the red book, the community book, was paying for itself, and her networking was paying for itself. All I wish she would have done is reinvest into those two, and I think she would have got a lot more effort and more bang for her buck. So my charge for you today is to make a list of the strategies you're doing to bring in business. Look at them, analyze them, and see what's working. And then do more of those things that you like doing, and maybe get rid of things you hate doing. At least don't get rid of them until you find those things that you love to do. I have a couple here I wrote down. For example, if I was a realtor, going back to that example, realtors tend to build their businesses from open houses, from direct mail, from calling expireds, and networks. And I find a lot of times people don't want to call expired listings. They're encouraged to call expireds, and sometimes that could be awkward for an introvert, or for anybody for that matter. Now, I'm not saying not to do that, but if you don't want to do that, we need to find a suitable replacement for those expired. And one of those that I do is helping people build networks, or build a power team, or a circle of influence that can get me more listings and more buyers. And so as a realtor, ways you can do it is through open houses, through networking, through calling expireds, by calling former clients, and then creating a network around the type of people that you want to meet. And so as you can see in that example, and then cold calling, right? You can see in those examples that there may be 1 or 2 that you could use or do that you would be comfortable in doing. And hopefully it's enough to get you enough business. Because ultimately you need 2 to 3 strategies for bringing the business, upwards to 4. And if those stop working, you have others to pull from. And that's why I picked the 8 to 10. Another example, again, going back to property managers, I work with a lot of property managers around the country. And I find that where you can get your business, some of the strategies and tactics is investors groups. Getting involved in investors groups, like I said earlier, finding those people who have 7, 8 properties already, and it's becoming a job. Another way property managers get business is through realtors, building those realtor relationships. A lot of times realtors don't want the headache of managing their properties, and they don't want the legal aspects of getting in trouble for managing properties. So that's a second way that you can bring in business. The third way you can bring in property management business is through estate planning attorneys, financial planners. Estate planning attorneys find a lot of times people who inherit properties that they don't want to manage. Maybe a divorce attorney. There's a divorce and they want to get rid of the property and they can't sell the property during these difficult times. And maybe they need to rent it out instead. So as you can see in those examples, there's many ways of approaching this, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. Finding that what works for your personality, your profession, and your position makes the world of difference. I hope you got something out of today. Hopefully you saw some value out of it. And I'd like to do a follow-up session to this, a second episode to this very topic, and go into more detail. So again, if there's something you'd like for me to cover in the next episode, or whenever you see this in future episodes, I would love to see that, because I have so much more to share, like how to sell the 7 C's, getting people to buy from you. This is a process that I developed from the inspiration of the book E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Michael Gerber talks about how to create a business that is franchise-like. In other words, your first customer has the exact same experience as your 1,000 customers. So when I was presenting to prospects, depending on who I was presenting to, I changed my presentation up every single time. And I got to thinking about Michael Gerber's statement that wouldn't I want everyone to have the same experience? So I created a 7-step process to getting people to buy from me. And I started to do the same process over and over and over. And I made a commitment. I would do the same process 10 times in a row and figure out what I uncovered. And what I uncovered was when I skipped steps, I usually didn't close the deal. But when I followed the steps, people would buy from me more times than not. These are just some of the things I would love to share in future episodes. So as we finish up, I want you to, again, comment below. What is your biggest challenge for bringing a business? What is one thing that you got out of today's episode that will make the biggest difference, whether it's understanding marketing, networking, and selling? Taking a step further with marketing, understanding your target market, finding people not only want your services, but are willing to buy your services. Or the final thing that we talked about today is finding 8 to 10 strategies for bringing in business, finding those 3 to 4 that fit for your personality, your profession, and your position that you enjoy doing, are excited to do, because I find if you enjoy it, you like it, you're more likely to do it. And I'll finish with this note, because there are some people that will be watching that are speakers, they're trainers, or business coaches. And I find one of the ways that business coaches, speakers, and trainers can bring in more business is by adding more value. One of the ways that I add more value is doing live events like this where I serve you. And hopefully someday it will lead to sales. Maybe somebody will watch this recording and say, you know what Jim had to say resonated with me, and I want to find out more about his services. So I want to go to his website, jimromanonline.com, and find out about that. Or he's always offering this free 45-minute coaching session. Maybe I'll take him up on that and find out how he can help me with my biggest challenge that I'm facing right now. Maybe if he can solve that, maybe he can solve a lot of other challenges. But I find that speakers and trainers and coaches don't do well in large groups of people. So doing a live event like this, or I find a lot of times for me, I love being in groups of 10 to 20 people, not so big, but just intimate enough that I can see the difference that I'm making in people's lives. I also blog. I also do a YouTube channel. I find different ways of sharing my knowledge, sharing the blessings that I had over the years, and hopefully to serve people in their lives, and that what goes around will hopefully come around to me. So I hopefully you got something out of this episode. As always, if you like what you see, please feel free to like, share, and comment below. You can always message me with any challenge that you have or anything like we cover in future episodes. Or you can email me at questions@askjimroman.com. And again, I thank you for being here today. That concludes our episode. As always, I'm Jim Roman. The more you know, the more we grow. Thank you for being here. So for those of you who are stuck around, this is the bonus section where I go into the questions and answers to see if anybody may have said anything in response to the things. Otherwise, this episode is over, and we would love for you to continue to stick around with us as I look for any questions that may be there. I didn't mention, one of the things I mentioned, Federico, great to see you. It's been a while since I've seen you. Awesome. One of the things I didn't talk about as part of the strategies is I find that 80% of the business you get can come from people you already know. Again, 80% of the business can come from people you already know. A lot of times what people are doing is tapping into their current customers, finding those reviews, getting those referrals, getting additional revenue. Another way of finding business, another strategy that anywhere introvert and extroverts can do is following up on past customers and seeing how they're doing. What's coming around the corner is what we call the forgiveness factor. Around the holidays, I talk about making those calls and asking for forgiveness for not staying in touch. I do this quite often for people that I don't feel comfortable calling in the middle of the year because it's kind of awkward. But during the holidays, I can always say, hey, I just wanted to call you. I was thinking about you during the holidays. Missed seeing you. Want to apologize for not staying in touch. We'll love to catch up with a cup of coffee or a Zoom call to see how you're doing. That's another approach to be able to bring in business based on your personality. I find if I already know the people, it's easier for me to approach them versus going after total strangers, which for me scares me to death, to be totally honest with you. What else? Marketing strategies. Which ones like, ones don't? I would like to be the list of the next presentation I use come up. Okay, Gary, we'll do that. I'll have Dawn reach out to you, and let's talk about some marketing strategies. The only thing I would add about marketing strategies, one of the most powerful things is your brand. What is your brand? Your brand message. That's very important. I don't care what you do in the world, you have a brand, and is your brand what you want to represent? Then there is your marketing message. Is your marketing message magnetic enough to attract the market that you want? For example, for me, we talk about building a better business to build a better life. In other words, I can help you build a business, but if you're not having a life beyond that business, what good is it? And I find so often that small business owner, micro businesses don't have a life beyond the business. And so we created a program around that called Micro to Millions while having a life, helping you go to $1 million or more while having a life. It's a magnetic message, not for everybody, but those people who have a desire to live beyond their business after all the hard work they put in. So we could talk about that as well. And then we just talked about strategies, number of appointments, how to get the number of appointments. So thank you for sharing that, Gary. I would love to talk about that in our next episode. I'll go into that, so thank you for sharing that. So as we finish this up, again, I can't thank you enough. This is an honor to share my knowledge over the years. Like I said, I almost wasn't here because of the incident I had in 1996 where I wanted to throw in the towel and give up. And I'm going to say to you, if you're still watching this at this very moment, don't give up. Do not throw in the towel, because I almost did that in 1996, and I would not be here today to share my knowledge and make the difference that I have over the last 20 years. So if you're struggling with doing this COVID situation, you're struggling because you're just struggling and you need someone to talk to, or even just someone to listen to, please reach out to me or one of my certified business coaches. We would love to serve you, help you, and just listen. Because sometimes that's all we need, is that caring call to have someone to share. Because this is a lonely time, and I don't want you to feel lonely like I did so long ago. So again, thank you so much for being here. And if you're here this long, thank you for sticking around. I love you. Again, the more you know, the more we grow. Talk to you soon, and see you next week. 12 o'clock, same back channel here on Facebook. We